This is unprecedented, where we are having a supplementary budget barely below a month after we pass the main budget. We are actually having the supplementary budget, but to us, technically, we know it is actually the main budget, because we never had a chance also to implement the budget that we passed and was signed into law by the president and became the Appropriations Act. And therefore, what we'll be doing today, to the benefit of all Kenyans, is actually the main budget. It's only called the supplementary one because there is no other semantics for it. Members, we passed a budget of over 4 trillion shillings. We have had now to relook at what we need to do now, because the budget we passed just shy of 4 trillion. It was 4.992 trillion. We had hoped that after passing the expenditure side of the budget, then the budget will be funded. But the Kenyan people told us we need to do something, our things differently. And therefore, we then had to make an arrangement where our revenue side of the budget matches with the expenditure side. Because the revenue raising measures, if they are not there, then it means even the expenditure cannot continue to exist as it was. Therefore, what we are doing is two-way, and will be enumerated better by the National Treasury. It is to borrow slightly more. We had a budget then with a fiscal deficit of 3.83%. Currently, we are now having one before us, which is around 4.2 to 4.3% deficit to GDP ratio. It means we are borrowing slightly more. On the other hand, we have had now to look at ourselves internally and inward, and therefore look at expenditure that we can postpone and others that we could cancel, so that we are able to live in a manner that matches the revenue that we expect. And in that respect then, we have been holding Your Excellency meetings with the departmental committees. All of them without exemption have had budget cuts. And all of them, I want to appreciate all the members of parliament through the departmental committees that they are members in, that we have decided, all of us, that these times are different, and therefore we need to think differently. And for the first time, Your Excellency, in my terms in service of Kenyans as an MP, I've never had any other chance where CDF is being cut and there seems to be no one complaining about it. This is the first time I have seen. And we are doing that because we know where we are, and we really need to look at our financials and live within our means. Also, Your Excellency, we are cutting this budget across all levels of government and across all departments of government. We are actually looking at the equitable share, which is likely also to have a haircut of 20 billion. The parliament itself, parliament is losing 3.7 billion Kenya shillings. And also the national government is losing. Every other person has to contribute to this deficit.
Mr. Chairman, your committee, through you, raised some very specific questions to be responded to. Question number 1 was, what are the growth prospects for the financial year 2024-25 amid the prevailing uncertain economic environment? Mr. Chairman, the Kenyan economy is currently unwinding from the effects of negative and persistent global domestic shocks that have pushed the economy to its lowest activity level. The shocks included COVID-19 pandemic and effects of climate change, from the prolonged drought in 2021 to the floods in 2024. These shocks escalated the cost of essential household commodities. They also pushed up fuel prices and led to a rapid depreciation of the Kenya shilling exchange rate thus piling pressure on public debt. Mr. Chairman, through focused policy interventions and structural reforms, the government efforts have started to yield some positive results. The economy grew by 5.6% in 2023, up from 4.9% in 2022, a demonstration of resilience and the sustenance of economic recovery. This growth momentum has continued into 2024, with the economy expanding by 5% in the first quarter, and it is projected to grow by 5.5% by the end of the year. This growth is largely driven by a strong rebound in the agricultural sector, which benefited from favorable weather conditions after 2 years of severe droughts. Additionally, service sectors remained resilient, with tourism, transport, real estate, financial, and ICT services supporting growth. Private domestic demand is expected to remain resilient, even as the public sector consolidates further, while providing support for government initiatives aimed to benefit people at the bottom of the income pyramid. Mr. Chairman, this strong growth will be reinforced by ongoing interventions under the bottom-up economic transformation. The better objectives are bringing down the cost of living, eradicating hunger, creating jobs, expanding the tax base, improving foreign exchange balances, and inclusive growth. The MTP4 adopted a value chain approach with the better core pillars and key enablers clustered under 5 sectors, that is finance and production, infrastructure, social, environment and natural resources, and governance and public administration. Economic growth over the medium term will be driven by raising agricultural productivity, transforming the micro, small, and medium enterprise economy, increasing investment in housing and settlement, strengthening healthcare through universal health coverage, and investing in the digital superhighway and creative economy. Mr. Chairman, let me draw members to paragraph 25. That is on inflation. Inflation is now firmly under control at 4.6% in June 2024, from 7.9% in 2023, and a peak of 9.6% in October 2022, due to easing of food and energy prices. The appreciating shilling produced a strong pass-through effect to lower domestic prices, supported by a tight monetary policy stance and interventions by government in providing subsidized fertilizer and seeds, which continue to lower the cost of food production, but also revitalize agricultural production. Inflation is projected to remain within the target band over the medium term. Mr. Chairman, as you know, the target band is between 2.5 up to 7.5. Tight monetary policy to stabilize inflation has led to rising interest rates and a slowdown in the growth of the private sector credit. The interbank rate increased to 13.3% in June 2024, compared to 9.6% in June 2023, while the 91-day Treasury bills rate increased to 16% from 11.5% over the same period, thereby increasing the cost of borrowing by government from the domestic market. So, Mr. Chairman, the flip side is that When we don't have revenue, then government has to borrow. So the interest rates are beginning to rise in the domestic market because now the government is beginning to re-enter into that space. We propose to rationalize the government of Kenya funded development budget by 138.5 billion Kenya shillings, and this includes 8.3 billion from the NGCDF in synchronization with the revised revenue projections, 1 billion from Parliament, and 800 million from the judiciary. And at 10, we list some of the proposed development budget cuts. They will include some of these, not all, but we're just listing some. And there, Mr. Chairman, you will notice that we are going to have to slash 14.6 billion for electrification of public facilities. That is the last mile item. We will have to slash 14.1 billion from the roads, 6.5 billion from water, sanitation, and irrigation projects, 6.5 billion from the police modernization project,